Hello, Billy the Artist here, back with another how to draw video, and today we are at last doing Middleton, the last of the 5DS from SAS Who Dares Wins. We have done 4 already. I know you can only see 3 here, but before we go any further, please do like and subscribe and tick the bell for new how to draw lessons, because there are lots and lots coming, and I am having a blast and it's really good fun. But we can see 3 here. We have done Foxy, Jason Carl Fox, we have done Ollie Ollerton, and we've also done Mark Billy Billingham, Billy Drawing Billy, which was absolutely fantastic. Now again, I've had fun doing those. Now this one, we did actually have a twofer, and at first the mole appeared, but it was Jay Morton. And he was the mole in a previous series for the other DS amongst the normal people, and we got the celebrity normal people, the normal people who were doing the SAS Who Dares Wins program. And what a stunning program! And the celebrity one is on now, but fantastic, absolutely amazing. Had fun doing the cartoon, and then doing this rather than a normal full face portrait. We did a half body just as a challenge. Again, something completely different to push your drawing skills, but still using the same techniques that I teach you with in all of my videos. Now again, we have these shorter grids. There is a link up in the cards and in the description to all the grids that I use for all of my work. Now again, oh, hang on a second. Oh, right, just dashing over. We do have lots of beginner stuff as well. So we have How to Draw the Simpsons. We have Bart, Marge, Homer. There's Lisa. Sorry, not Lisa, Maggie, and there is Lisa. And again, these are all in the How to Draw playlist. I've got over 120 videos now covering loads of subjects. Toy Story, The Incredibles are there. There's absolutely loads. Now these are as simple as you get. There's just a cross in the middle, which is this line here. And I do these to help. The grids help you to actually place everything. And again, the one that we did with Jay, I went and used, because it was so complex, the grids, the 2 centimetre grid that I've also used in the Harry Potter and the other portraits. And here we go. Oh, there's been lots recently, and it's just great to share with you, and people are sharing them online as well, their own versions, what they are doing. So here we have Harry Potter from a while ago. He's got the same cross with grids that I've done the first 3 DS. But then Billie Eilish and Dumbledore, I use these 2 centimetre grids. Now the reason the grids are there is it helps to actually place everything. And some people may say, oh, it's cheating using the grid, or it's tracing. Now anyone who does hyperreal or very realistic pictures, and you don't see, or they don't explain how they get the line down, and you don't see the scratchy construction lines that I do. Now they're probably either using a projector, or they are tracing, or they're using a grid that you can't see. So it's just the way that art is. Now, ever since we had lenses, during the time of the Renaissance, we have used these grids. They just help as reference points. And when I learned to draw properly, it took years and years and years, but when I learned to draw at art school, and I've mentioned before, they didn't actually teach us much, because it's all about be experimental, oh, be creative. No, I want to learn techniques and skills that will help me to have a job. Imagine just going into, you're an animator, or you're a designer for Pixar for their next big film, and you just splat stuff around because I was taught to be creative. No, you need skills to do a job and do it well. Now, I remember one life drawing lesson, and we were taught when the model was actually sitting on the dais that was in front of us, and they were sitting on a chair, and there were drapes around, and there were things behind, so it could have been the radiator or a dado rail, and that kind of went through behind the back of the head or through the shoulder. we were taught to use those lines like these grids. So it's exactly the same. And eventually you don't even need to use them because you will see them automatically and you'll be able to put the shapes down. It's just about building techniques. But I use these grids. And again, that link to the video will show you how to put these grids down on the paper that you actually need for all of this work. But do check out the playlist, the How to Draw Portraits playlist, the Harry Potter playlist. They're in the description. They're also all on the Art of Billy YouTube channel. But do check them out and share them with your friends and have fun. But here we have the piece of paper that we are going to be using today. And there's the 2 centimeter grid across. Now again, check out the link in the banner right now. And these are the dimensions. This is an A4 piece of paper. It's 210 millimeters across and it is 297 millimeters down the side. The center line is 105 millimeters. And that's why we've kind of got this little border of 5 millimeters around the outside. Now, just having that dead center, it works. If it was just slightly off, it'd look weird. So it's just having a center line actually helps and works. So that's why I've done this the way they have. But all the dimensions that you need, all the markings, 5, 25, 45, 65, 85, 105, 125, 145, 165, 185 and 205, and then all the ones down the side the same, going all the way down to 285. They're there in that banner. And again, check out the video. You'll see me actually laying it down, and I use a technique. Check that video out. There's a technique that I use to keep this paper clean while you're drawing down. Now, I draw down using a 2B pencil, so you can see these lines. I draw them dark. I know that people who are regulars, you will have seen this many times, you'll have heard it, but I draw these dark so that you can see them. You don't have to draw them that dark. So again, if you check out my actual portraits time-lapse playlist, where you see me doing detailed drawings over days, they are long drawings that take time to do. They don't have the dark lines that I actually put down, but I'm doing this to help you develop your skills and your techniques so that you can do the drawing. Now again, we're going to start using shapes on here. So check out again the banner, How to Draw Anything, Part 1, using shapes. It's been up there now for over 6 years. It's helped lots of people to break drawing down into simple forms. And there's that lovely saying that I've got in it where it says you can draw a bird, a bee, a flea, a tree, a horse, a house, or anything else, including people. So we are going to crack on now. I'm going to get a trusty 2B pencil, and we are going to get on with the work. Oh, and this paper, it's just cartridge paper. Any kind of normal pad, it's a smooth cartridge pad. I actually like using one by Dale Arowney, a particular one, just because I've used it from, well, 30 years now, and you get used to using it. But I've used lots of different cartridge paper. It's just what you can draw on. So anyway, we are now going to crack on and do the drawing. We have Ant in front of us, and off we go. Now again, we're going to use the shapes, but I'm just going to put some little marker lines down. So on the centre line at the top, we've got the very top of Ant's head. And that kind of just comes above the 25 line, dead on the centre line. Now, if we come down, we got to 165, we can see there on the centre line, you got the top of his arm, his left arm. And the reason I've chosen this picture as well is his arms are exposed. So it's like when we did Jay Morton, but Jay had got a full jumper on and you couldn't see his arms. So now we've got real arms that are folded and some fingers that are sticking out and tattoos. That's going to be fun. But it's all dead simple, just in shapes. So we are now down under the 205, and that's where the bottom of his right arm comes. And then his shirt comes all the way down, and that's kind of right at the bottom. But these, we know, are going to be our kind of end points. So again, on the 145 line, over to this side, past the 185, we know that his arm is going to be past there, and his right arm on the 165 line, that was the 145, so we got his right arm is down on the 165 and the widest point is about there. So now I know that's where I need to go as far as I can. And putting shapes down and little markers like this mean if you just started doing detail now and your shapes were out and your proportions were out a little bit, you'd actually run out of paper. And I made that mistake lots of times. But now I'm just going to draw in some shapes. So here, right at the top of Ant's head, we've got his hair right at the top. And it's a bit of a rectangle. So I'm now drawing this rectangle in. And then his forehead, I'm just going to put another rectangle in. And we've got a little triangle inside that rectangle. And then his ear, which is just past the 125 and it's above the 65 line. We've got another little rectangle. And then the back of his head, we've got coming off. We've got a little kind of triangle shape there. Well, so imagine a D but straight lines. It's like an inverted V, and we'll curve that round in a moment. And actually inside his ear we do actually have a little D there, but with the bit that comes down here it's like a big capital P. So I've just drawn that in very, very quickly because that'll help us with shapes in a bit. So now we've got a rectangle for his jaw and his beard coming down there, and we've got this brilliant shadow for his beard and his jaw, and that's going to come out to about there. But we've got another rectangle for the bottom of his beard. Here we've got right across the 85 line, I've got a little rectangle, and that's his mouth. And then I've got a little rectangle there, and that's his beard going up to the top of his moustache. His nose, so here I've got a triangle. And then we can just draw that line down for where his eye's going to go. And then this eye, I've got another rectangle, and then a little rectangle for his eyebrow on that side. And then a little triangle for Ant's eye that's going to go inside that rectangle there that we've just drawn in. And now somebody outside, I don't know if you can pick this up on I do my best to actually keep the noise down, but somebody's kicking off with a grinder. It may turn up on the sound, but I'm just trying to keep the sound down to a minimum. It used to be a long time ago, you'd hear the birds singing and everything, but I have actually I've closed my window and all kinds of stuff, but I can hear a grinder kicking off. Because everyone's at home doing stuff, so they're doing DIY jobs. There's people out chopping logs with chainsaws, and it's quite funny. So anyway, we need to do a little rectangle there. That's his moustache at the top. Oh, the grinder has stopped. There we go. That's fine. Like I say, you might not be able to hear it. I don't know. But it's just what happens. Because everybody's working at home now. I had sanctuary for so long. And occasionally they let me out. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to come over now. And we've got his left arm going up to his shoulder. And that comes over to the 125 line. And I'm just going to put... It comes over to the 145. So I'm just going to put in a rectangle for the top of his arm, which then allows me, so here we've got triangles. So here, coming off his neck, we've got a little triangle shape. And then we've got a triangle there going across those lines down to his shoulder. That needs to just go up through that line. Now, this shoulder. On this actual corner here, rather than doing the full big shapes, I know there I've got a little triangle on the 125 and 45. And that just allows me to put a shape in quickly. So here now, I've got a kind of parallelogram rectangle coming down to the edge of his arm. So now, his right arm that comes down, so his elbow comes down to the 205 line. And there, I've just got another rectangle shape. The muscle here is simply a triangle. The muscle here we've got coming right the way down for his arm, and this comes down to the centre line. To that muscle we've got a triangle, and then we've got another triangle that comes and touches the 65 line about halfway in that square, and then that goes up to join his elbow. So again, just using very simple shapes. Now I'm going to draw in this hand. So here we've got a little triangle shape there, like a kind of piece of cheese with the curved edge. Here we've got his watch, that's just an ellipse. That was like the Through Dark logo. But just look at it, it's on a rectangle, the kind of basal mount, and then the strap, we've just got a rectangle that comes down, that goes off the back. So now again, we've got his elbow now, which is on the 145 line. So I'm just drawing a little ellipse like we did for the watch, because you've got the edge of that web as well, so that'll help us. And then we can curve the arm down, and you can see because you've already put that line in, you just join that little curve going underneath. Now here we can see that the top of his arm comes to about there, and you've just got a kind of rugby ball shape of muscle. So there's your rugby ball, and then we can curve down. That mark was a little bit high, so I've just brought that down underneath, and that curves up to the top of his arm. And then we've got the shape going up of the muscle there. You've got that definition where that shadow is. Now the fingers, we've got one little finger here, just a little shape, and we can see coming up to the 165 145 line we've got another long rectangle, and that's the second finger, and then the third finger, just a rectangle going up over the top to the knuckle, and just push the line down a little bit. And then the fourth finger, his index finger at the back, points. Now here we've just got a nice curve that comes around and curves down to this point here, and then we can curve a kind of D shape all the way down, and that's the edge of that arm. And you're actually using the grid as your shapes, but here we've got a triangle. You can see you've got this lovely triangle that comes down to the top of the fingers there, and that's the creases on the shirt. Again, we can just push them up a little bit. Now right on the 145 125 line we've got this little logo, this little emblem, and it's just slightly, it's not parallel completely, so it's a little froggy, but I'm just drawing a little rectangle for now, little rectangle inside at the top, and just a couple of little diagonal rectangles, and then little ones for the feet, and that gives us just the shape that we actually need. And so now, coming off the side of his arm, going up from his elbow, the side of his left arm is following that curve up right the way. So now we've just got to put in the body where his shirt comes down, and we can just curve a D that comes around, and then that goes right to the bottom. This is all in shadow, which is really good and solid. Now we can see that this comes through the 45 line and comes down to the 285. So you can see there we've just got an L shape that curves all the way down, and then you've got what is his legs going to the bottom. So now I've got a simple V shape there, and that's the creases for the top of his arm, from his right armpit going up over his shoulder. We can push that line off. Now I can just curve that a little bit, and then we've got the crease between his chest muscles right there. But here underneath his chin coming down, we've got another triangle, and this is the shadow. So you've got that crease that goes all the way down, but you've got this triangle of shadow that goes over. And there, as we've said before, you have your cubist shape all set down so that we can then start adding the detail of the outline down for Ant. But just by putting all of these shapes down, you've now got everything in proportion, so that you know you're not going to go off the page, and you know that everything's now going to work inside. Next we're going to put the full detail line down, so I am now going to sharpen my 2B pencil just so as I've got a sharp point again. And I'm going to use this paper just to stop me from smudging the drawing that I've got underneath already. And now we're going to start where up on Ant's eyes. Now here we can see got a nice curve shadow shape that starts off just on this side of the 85-65 line. So come down from the 85, you can see you've got this fantastic shape that comes around. So we put that rectangle in, and it's like a kind of arrowhead, a really elongated D. So you can see there's just a shadow of a D shape all the way round, and it comes round just underneath the 65 line and just to the right of the centre line, and then that comes across to about halfway down between 65 and 85. And you see there, we've just got this D shape, which is fantastic. It's just so simple. When you break an image down into simple shapes, it just gives you so much scope and capability to get the drawing done really, really well. So now his eye, we've got this triangle for his eye within that shape, and we can see we've got this dark going just to the right of the 85 line, and it curves over and kind of comes down to there. And then his actual eye and his eyeball is in this little triangle inside, and this curves down, and his lower eyelid just kind of curves back around, and then we've got his left iris and his pupil, and it's all dark. Then we've got a little kind of triangle of dark there, and now here just above the 65 line in that D we've got Ant's left eyebrow, and that curves all the way down and around, and we can just follow that shape. And then his right eye, where we've got the edge of his head, we put in these just little construction lines in these shapes. And again, just as we had this big extended D here, in fact, I'm just going to put in the bag underneath his eyes, the crease line underneath his eyes there. And you kind of got another little D shape there. And then quickly you just indicate some lines for the crow's feet, the creases coming off his left eye socket. Now here we've got his eyebrow that's coming through, and we've got this shape of this triangle that we just put in for his nose. But you can see here that the edge of his nose, the top of his nose, between the top of his nose and his right eye, is just inside and just down from his right eyebrow. And so we've got this diagonal line that comes up and comes to halfway in between the 65 and 85 square, and this is his right eyebrow. So that curves up. I'm just going to pull out quickly, just so as we've got that gap. In between his eyebrows. And you've got this little triangle here. It's fantastically sharp. And then his nose comes down. So we've got to put the triangle in just to have the shape so we know where it was going to go. And then we've got down at the bottom here, we've got this lovely little curve, and you can kind of see that it's, so if you've got this kind of centre of the square there, you can see how his nose has got to be just to the right of it, the tip of his nose as it comes down. And then you can see how that curves around under, curves back up slightly, so you just got this little U shape there, and it goes past the 85 line. Now his nostril is going to go over the top, curving the opposite direction, so that curves over, and then you've got the side of his nose where it joins his cheek. Again, you can see it comes down from the shadow part above. So you're using your reference points that you've put in and the marks you've already made. So your overall marks just give you the shapes, give you really good reference points to work to. Now his nose here curves up, and that goes to about the third line there. But that's just a D shape. So you can see there off the 85 line how the nose curves around. You've got another D shape. And then you get the diagonal coming off, and that comes down and touches just about on the centre line between the 85 and the 105. Now, Ant's nose curving up, you've got the kind of tip of his nose just bubbles round, and then his nose comes up to join this line here, and it's just slightly curved. So I'm twisting my pencil so that it's sharp. And then it curves back and around. Now we've got his right eye, which is just underneath the 65 line. Where we've got that line, you've got his iris and his pupil, and that comes down a little bit, and then you've got a nice little simple curve for the upper part of his lower eyelid. And then you've got the bag under his eye that curves right out and comes back. Now where his eye comes out, just join it up underneath to the edge of his eye socket and his eyebrow. It's a bit like a kind of cliff overhang, and that's fantastic, just a great shape. Now his eyebrow here that comes up to the centre, it's very angular, so I'm just increasing that line and that one down, and straight away you can actually see that we've got good shapes and detail building just around Ant's nose and eyes in the centre of his face, and it gives you a focal point. So now we need to bring his right cheek out, and that's just a slight little curve, and that comes down and touches there. Now again, I've drawn these lines really dark, so I'm just going to come in with the putty rubber just so that I can get a finer line on his nose. And it's amazing, I'm back drawing, don't know if you can hear, but someone's back out with a grinder. So anyway, we've got this rectangle for his forehead now and we can see how there's a little kind of C-shape curve for the edge of his head, and obviously it goes off over at an angle, but it goes up above the 45 line, and it kind of goes through about on the third again, but above you've just got this little triangle. So there, and this is the hairline on the top, so that goes up and goes down. There you've got that tiny little triangle, and we can just curve his forehead like we did with the nose. There's a little bit of a curve as that comes down and then curves back out. Now his hairline coming round curves down. We already put the construction lines in, and this curves all just slightly curve line for his hair to about 2/3, and that's where this dark line is here. And so now I'm going to draw in the edge of his hair, but you can see how this comes right the way over. So we've got another kind of rectangle, and this is where his hair joins the side of his forehead. And then you've got this kind of shadow shape that comes down right to the corner of his eye there. And then we can just build up that dark a little bit. Now, his hair, we've got a C shape here, just a capital C. And that curves up and over to the top. And then you can see how the lines follow that curve as it's being brushed back. So follow the line of his hair with your pencil. Now we curve up and back down to the 105 centre line, and then there's another shape that just kind of comes up and comes down, and then here you can see there's this little triangle, and that's the top of his hair as that comes back and then curves around. Now we want a mark kind of halfway where we did these little diagonal lines, and then we can just follow this curve down now to the back of Ant's head out to that line at that point, and then it just kind of wobbles and curves back down where it's going to join the back of Ant's neck, and it just kicks off and under and just comes underneath the 85 line. So I'm just going to sharpen my pencil again. So now we've got the shape of Ant's ear, and we do the shape of Ant's ear, and that kind of fills everything in for us in his hair. So again, the top of his ear just starts above the 65 line. And we've got the rectangle in already, and it's just on the inside of the kind of halfway point. And you've got this big D shape. So I'm just going to follow the line round. I'm just looking at the reference, and the ear curves up, goes over, it's kind of square at the top, and then it curves down to about the halfway point, and then it just starts to curve back under. And his bottom of his earlobe comes round below the halfway point and past the 125 line. And then you've got that curve going around, and then you've got this P shape here. So you've got like kind of a P shape, and that's the inner part of his ear. So I'm drawing the edge, and then the line actually goes up and curves, and we can do this line, and then that comes down, and then you've got a little V, and then there's a little bit of shadow there. But now we can do this P shape inside Ant's ear, and then there's a tiny little V there, and that's the crease inside the top of his ear. And now we've got a triangle of hair. We can just indicate the direction of Ant's hair on these highlights. You've got the dark, just these lines coming over. So here we've got this nice sweep. You've got a V here, so it just sweeps up and over. You can see you've got that V there, the direction of Ant's hair going up. So that's looking pretty good already. So now coming off the back of Ant's head, you've got his neck coming down to his collar, and coming off the bottom of his ear. I'm looking at that, just needs to push over a little bit more. I'm just going to rub that out. I'm just going to push that shape over a tiny little bit more, and that becomes the edge. Now we want his neck just follows this diagonal line down, so you can kind of imagine from that cross point it's going to just come down, and that's the edge of his neck, and it comes and it just starts to curve coming over to his shoulder. And here we've got the top of his collar, and that curves around and joins dead on the 105 line, where we just put the shape of the bottom part of his jaw. So now I'm just going to curve that slowly, goes through the cross point, and it goes out towards his shoulder and just curves over the top. And now the kind of hem of his collar follows that line down into that shadow. Now I'm just going to sharpen my pencil again, just so as I've got a truly sharp point. Now we're going to come in, we're going to put in Ant's mouth. And if we do the shapes around, so we know on the centre point we've got the top of his moustache that comes down. It creates his beard underneath his bottom lip here, and then that curves off, and then from the top in fact the shape of his nose just needs to come up that little bit. There we go. So just pulled the shape of his nose in a little bit, and the top of his moustache comes down through that centre line. Now here we've got the bushy side of his moustache coming off to the side, and it comes out to about halfway. Again, following the same diagonal angle of his nose. And we can just indicate some wiggly lines. And then we've got, it's like a bird, like a dead simple bird shape, but really with wide flat wings. So we've got a slight little kink down on this little rectangle, and then that's the centre part of his top lip, between his top lip and his bottom lip, and then that carries on going down at a slight diagonal angle. It comes over and then just kinks back up. And the top of his lip kind of follows the same kind of little wing shaped pattern. It curves over and then goes right down to the corner of his mouth. And then we just do some little vertical lines for his moustache on the top. Now his bottom lip, just a slight little curve. And we can follow that little curve shape for his bottom lip underneath. And then it curves up into the corner. And then we've got this dark line coming down for the shadow. You can see the shadow, but we've got the highlighted part of his beard. And that comes underneath the 85 to 105 line here. And then that joins up there. And then we know there's going to be a little bit of shadow there. That's like kind of the crease underneath his bottom lip. Just bring the dark down. Now we know that we've got the edge of his jaw right down, and that comes across. So I'm just doing a little fuzzy line right the way underneath. Now the corner of his jaw, this goes up, and again I'm just twisting the pencil so I've got a sharp edge. And we've got a hard line, well, not too hard, but coming off his ear. Again, just that darker line, it's a little bit close, so just erasing that off a little bit. And then we've got his jawline comes down, and this is where underneath the 85 line his beard just comes off to the side of his cheek. And so you can see that's pretty much a straight line coming down. So fuzzy lines down, fuzzy lines, and you want it to curve following the shape of his face. So draw a little line for your curve, and then you can just add on all of the, just fuzz the line out a little bit with little flecks. Now again, coming right the way up, we've got a triangle up to the centre line here. Again, I'm just twisting the pencil, so I'm just getting a nice little sharp bit after each couple of little strokes. They come down, and then you've got a little bit of hair going up to that corner there. Now here we've got a shape where we've got dark coming underneath. And there you've got Ant's head, just the detail down quite quickly and quite well. And now we can just put the rest in, but we've got to sort his arms out and put the tattoo lines on as well. So now we've got the rest of this detailing to do, getting the outline down. Now I've just sharpened my pencil, because keeping your pencil sharp for these kind of lines, again I put these lines down very, very dark, and you can see the construction lines. But if you were doing a drawing and you wanted it to give to somebody, then you can put your construction lines down a lot lighter using maybe a 2H pencil or something like that, or very lightly with a 2B. So it's things like, here we are, I'm just going to, so like there, you can't really see the pencil lines, but that's with a 2B pencil. But this is why I do these lines very, very dark, so that it helps you with being able to see what I'm up to and what I'm doing. Because it's a bit like a pen and ink drawing, really. That's how dark I've put these lines down. Whereas on my actual portraits, I wouldn't put them down that dark, but it just allows it to stand out. And it does give it a good bit of pizzazz, really. So anyway, I'm now just going to quickly just put a couple of diagonal lines for the creases in Ant's neck. And then here we've got this fantastic shape where the shadow is coming down, and above his eye we've got, it's like a big bird there, you've got a V shape, a couple of wings of shadow, and then there's a V shadow in the shape above his forehead, and that comes off to the side. Again, just different elements of people's, the shape of people's faces, they're all different. It's so wonderful and unique. But this is where actually doing a pencil drawing, you're learning to look and observe and then apply that down. You're creating an illusion using graphite or paint, to ground up pigments in whatever, I use oil paints, medium, you could use watercolours or felt tip pens. You're creating an impression that you are drawing something that somebody can recognise. So now anyway, we're going to get the outline down all around the outside of his body. Now I did actually think I was going to do his arms next, and then we could put the body in afterwards, just to show that there is no, you don't have to do one bit after another. Once you've got your construction lines down, you can work on different bits. And if you check out Sheku Kanemason, the drawing I did of him, I did all the outline, and then I only put detail in on his face, his hands and his cello. Very, very lovely thing to do, that was. So anyway, I am now going to bring the curve down. We've got this shoulder, and his actual shoulder curve goes on this through the 185, 125 line, and then it just kind of curves up to here. So we know that there's lines going to go in between, but it's not a straight line. If you just put a straight line in, it won't look natural because of the bones, the muscles, the sinews, the tendons that make up everything from your shoulder joint up to your neck. So you've got your spinal column coming down from the back of your neck. So from the inside of your neck to here, you've got all kinds of muscles and tendons and sinews. And then there's a brilliant neck muscle that kind of comes out here all the way down to this part here. So you know that there's going to be, underneath this t-shirt, a little bit of a curve there. And then you've got the top part of all the shoulder joint and the bones that come here, and that curves. And then you've got the lines of the fabric inside. So don't just do a straight line. Think about what's actually making up the skeleton, the muscles, the skin of the person, as well as the shape of the shirt. So again, coming around the outside of his arm here, we've got this curve that comes down to the 145 line, and then it just kicks out. And then comes back in, and it comes back in just over the 165, 185 line. And then you've got the hem, and that just curves off a little bit. So now we've got the curve of the shirt, and it really does come through the 165, 165 line together, right on this cross point. So we just want to follow that curve right the way down off the back of his arm. And the arm will be just inside the edge of the shirt. The shirt has got to be just over it. And you've got the kind of hemline, we can just indicate that going up over, and that touches that finger. So now again, we've got these hands. Now, because we broke this down into shapes, arms can be quite difficult, folded arms can. And people will say, oh, drawing hands is difficult. But if you break everything down into shapes, it becomes very, very simple. So now I'm going to, before we do the arms, I'm just going to draw this line in quickly. So the side of his back, like the muscle right on the edge of the body going down the side of your arms from underneath your elbow, that comes down, joins there, and it just pushes the shirt, and then you've got a little curve there for the fabric, and then again it just curves out, comes down, and then we can draw that kind of crease line in, and that's the shape of that side of his shirt coming down over his body. Now we've got this little finger here, and because we put the shapes in, it just becomes really simple. So there's his little finger, and we can put the top of his arm. We've got this curve that comes down and then folds around past his little finger. Then the top finger kind of cuts through about a third. So we've got that little diagonal angle, and we know that the top of the finger touches the 145 line. So that goes to the first kind of little finger knuckle joint, and then you've got a little curve where it goes and joins the back. Now his second finger, you can see how that comes over. We put those basic construction lines in, that comes over quite close to the top finger, and then that comes out, curves like a D shape at the end, and then you've got Ant's little fingernails just showing there, just tiny little kind of ellipse shapes. Now his third finger touches through the 165, 145 line. So I'm just curving the top, and then his finger just bends a little bit, curves down, and then the final finger curves round, comes down and touches. So again, I'm now going to just push that up a little bit, just rubbing out a little bit. Again, I put really dark lines on. If you do light lines, you don't have to do that little rubbing out bit that I do. And we can push the curve of that muscle up, and the top of that finger goes there halfway through that one, and then we just want to indicate the shape of his fingernail, and there's a little bit of shadow there. So straight away we've got the top of his forearm and his hand pushing up and through. It's not difficult to draw hands, you just have to break them down into simple shapes. So now we've got the creases of his bicep, the t-shirt over his bicep coming up to his armpit, where we did these little lines before, and so that curves up, goes through that line there, and comes up to about there. Now right from that corner it goes over to the corner cross point of the 165, 185 line. But just put a little bit of a curve on, because bodies aren't flat, they are curved. So again, we've now got this second one that comes up and over and joins up on that line that we had coming off the corner of his shoulder. and that curves over, and then we need this one that comes up and then curves over, and the fold above it, and then we've got this quite a long V really. You can just draw a very long V that comes down, and then you can draw the top part there, and then you've got the highlighted line that curves around. Now as this comes and curves, we've got the little frog logo. We know that that is going to come around here, so where we put the little construction line in, we're going a little bit further over, and we can just bring that fabric crease, the fold, all the way down. And the next one, that curves down on the line that we put in originally, the little construction line, and then at the bottom it just kinks over. So again, folds may seem quite complex, but just take your time, use your reference points, and build up the lines and the layers. So now here, from this corner point on this square, we've got another kind of just slightly curved and bent triangle. Now we've got this crease that goes up above the halfway line and just slightly curves. It's got a darker shadow line that follows it underneath. When it comes down here, it splits off, and then we've got another little V inside. Little line there for the crease. Now we've got one where we put the construction line right through the cross line of the 145, 165, and that curves across and it comes and joins this top finger. So just curve it slightly, bend it down. Same for the crease above it. And then we've got this final one that curves and goes up through the line and curves around the side of his shoulder. And now you've got all of those folds in. Just sharpen the pencil again. Now we're going to do this tiny little frog. And we've got, very simply, a V with a curve at the bottom, so it's like a curved V. That goes off up, curve it back over, and you've got this kind of square. Just do a couple of little round eyes at the top, bring the shape down, and then in the little squares on the side just indicate 3 little toes, and that's your kind of little logo there on his chest. Now coming up, we've got this crease in between his chest muscles, so we can bring the line down, it curves out, slight curve there, comes back, but here we've got a little V of fabric folds, another one there, and then kind of a long banana there. You've got a little banana shape, and then you've got a V going up. Now coming out from underneath his neck, we can just finish the collar around. We've got some of these dark shadows in these folds, and that goes up, joins there. Now we've got just a slight curve but the shadow is there, and this is the shadow caused by the top, his jaw and the top of his head and his jawline coming down onto his body, onto his chest. Now, here we have these creases. And the reason I keep going through all of these and explaining is just so that you'll learn, and repetition is the best way to keep doing things and learning new skills. You've just got to keep repeating it over and over. So if you do it following these instructions, you'll then get the techniques into your hands and your eye coordination so you can do it on your own drawings as well. And that's the whole point. You should endeavour to build these skills up to then do it on your own drawings. So now we've got his right arm on the left hand side of the drawing. We've got his right arm to his right chest, and here from this point we've got this crease that comes down, and then the chest shape curves it a little bit back down towards his hand, and then we've got a dark shadow there which makes a kind of inverted V, that kind of big pointy hat there. Now we've got another dark shadow where we've got that construction line in, and then the shadow underneath coming off the bottom of his chin there. Now his shoulder, again, we've got the shape, it's not a straight line. You've got a slight little curve where it comes out there, and then it curves over through the halfway point. So again, we can just kind of curve the shoulder over, and then you've got that fold that comes around and comes down and joins here. So we've got the dark shadow at the bottom, and then that shape makes that fold. Then there's another one above it, and then another one above that there, another one inside, so now we've got a V here of this fold. So I'm just curving the fabric off, his shoulder coming through the 125 line, and it curves right around and comes down inside. Then you want the highlighted bit, so that comes down through the 25 line, no sorry, the 45 line, and then you've got a little smile there, and then you've got another one that comes down, goes through that cross point, simple little V, and then another one, and you've got another little smile there. And that's how easy you can just break these shadows and these shapes down into nice simple shapes that make sense. Like I say, just some smiles, like happy smiley faces, and they'll become your shadows. In the creases in the fabric. So now we've got a kind of banana shape coming down there, and another smaller one, little smile there inside. So now his shirt that comes out right to the edge of his arm on this side of the drawing comes out underneath the 165 line and then kicks back into where his arm is. But the shadow line underneath goes up, touches about halfway, and then rather than being the same curve going over, it kind of flattens out. So you've got that nice curve coming up there, and you can see how it flattens out, but it's still slightly curved. And we want to join that up there. And then you've got the hemline that curves up, curves over, and comes down. And the kind of second crease hemline above it. Going to sharpen the pencil. So now we've got this lovely ellipse of his watch. We've got the bezel at the top. This rim, this kind of metallic rim all the way around. So I'm sharpening that up. It looks like it says 10 on it, so it's 10 AM. in the morning possibly, but I'm just going to draw the inner ellipse, and you can see across there. So that, I'm just going to put this little rectangle in, and then divide that in two, divide that in two again, same on there, and then put another ellipse in there, two long lines, and this is how you get your 10. On the digital dash. Now we've got here little rectangle for the side of the edge of the watch. That's like a little C. And then there's 3 buttons, so it's just little ellipse, little cones. The bar coming across the back, the bottom, join that at the top, the same off at that top part. And then the strap, we just curve that down around. You've got some kind of, whether it's the buckle or the kind of bit of the strap that holds the flappy bit from flying around. So that's there, and we can just curve the rest of the strap down. So now here we've got that piece of cheese shape that we had, that is Ant's left hand curving down in the corner of his right arm. So that now curves up, and imagine that line goes underneath the watch. It's got to match up coming out here. His wrist comes across through the centre line, and then that's where you then curve that up, and that's the shape of his muscles. And I've got that second line above, so I'm excuse me, erasing the bottom line out, but that's where there's going to be like his kind of fuzzy hairs. Now we have here his arm curving up, cuts across, and then that crease goes up there. You've got the bottom part of the strap sticking out, again just a tiny little rectangle, and then his arm, the bottom of his arm comes down, goes right through this corner point of the 205 in the centre line, curves down around, back up and under. Then where we've got his elbow, we can curve that around, and we've got that shape, that complete shape, but you've just got this line that's coming off, caused by the tendons connecting joints and sinews and muscles together. And then from his elbow at the back, going up to the shirt, that muscle gives you that nice curved shape. And then here we've got a little curve for the shape of the muscle. And we're doing pretty well. So now we want the edge of his arm, and that just curves and then curves in and then back out again, and then curves underneath for his right elbow. And you can see, just follow your construction lines. That comes over, and then we've got this V, and you've got this muscle that comes down and pushes up along that diagonal, but I'm just kind of slightly curving it, and it comes up and joins just past the centre line. Now we've got a bit of definition here for the shape of Ant's forearm muscles, and then you've got one coming just underneath the 205 line. And then we've got a really good, we put this line in quite well. So we can just follow that line down, that's the edge of his shirt, going off and down. So there we have a good outline, and all we've got to do now is put the outline shapes on of Ant's tattoos. Now we are going to do these tattoos on Ant's arms, and they are just shapes. Now tattoos are literally drawn on the bodies of the people, so they're going to go on top, so we have got to get the shading in underneath, and then you'd kind of put the actual tattoos over the top. So it's easy to put the actual shape and everything in of the muscles and the shading, and we're going to do that in a moment, but we need to indicate where we're going to actually put these tattoos. So I'm going to sharpen the pencil, so I've got a nice sharp point, and we're going to start from his left arm over on this side. So here we have a little swallow, and this little swallow is just so a simple shape. So we've got a little rectangle there, a little triangle for the wings there, and a little triangle shape for the wing there. So now we have, coming over next to it in the next little quadrant, we've got this kind of little flower pattern. So here we've got a little circle for the flower head itself. There's a circle and a little cross inside, just a little curve that comes over. And then we want a U shape there, and then again we've got another curved shape here. This leaf, we'll put this little leaf in because it'll help us with positioning, and we've just got a kind of upside down teardrop shape for the leaf at the end. The curve comes down, another little curve. Now here there's something looks like a bunch of grapes, could be, don't know, but it's something, but it's just a little triangle. And then we've got a little line going up there, and then this looks like a kind of upside down heart. That's just a heart shape, nice and simple. Then we come over and we've got the web patterning. So we've already got this circle that we put in, this little ellipse, and we're going to start here, and there we've got a simple U shape, and then coming up into this square underneath the fingers you've got the web, and it's just slightly curved, so it curves over that muscle there, and then you can see it just curves and wobbles a little bit coming down to the point. Now this one is nearly horizontal, but it's just slightly curved because of the shape of his muscles. So we've got a kind of straight line coming down to join the top of this little U, but it's just slightly curved. Now we've got the middle line, and we can just go around, curve for the bottom of the web, and you can see that it's just to the right of the kind of centre line, and then that's going to curve down and join the bottom there. We've got the next little U shape, and that goes up right to the corner point of the 165, 185 lines underneath that leaf. So again, I'm now just going to put a slight little curve following the shape and form of his arm, and then it kind of disappears off just underneath his arm, and we've got a little line there. So now we're going to come and fill in the rest around this side. So we've got that shape there, little U, and that comes up here. So again, it kind of comes down. We've got this strong highlight on his arm, so I'm just going to go light there. And then we've got the next U shape, and then that comes up and curves following that line, just very slightly. It's actually quite straight, that one is. Now we've got one right on the 205 line, and then that just curves up into the square, and then we've got the shape of his elbow, and that kind of brings a line that comes up as well. So there we've got the fan shape of the spider web coming in all the way down. Now we have got here, just inside, and we can finish off those shapes, little U shapes just in the inside of his elbow. So now I'm going to start from this kind of center one on the web and just lightly indicate the top of the web, and these are just nice little U shapes that go around. And again, I'm using the reference points that we've got in, and it just helps. So now I'm going to do the same for the second line, which is underneath the 185 line, and it curves up, crosses, and goes right the way up into that square. And then the next one goes down and just kind of touches, goes underneath the line a little bit, and then that one curves, and then this one, it's kind of nearly straight, but it comes all the way down and just touches that, but just put a little curve on. Now I'm going to go backwards following the line and shape. So we go up, and then we curve over and up to the point, and then we do another curve, another little U shape, and then this one curves down and it's into the bright highlight. And now I'm going to just carry on going round. So here it's very light and bright, so I've pressed on lightly so as it'll rub out when we put the highlight on, when we shade everything in. And then that curves out, comes right the way down to the actual 205 line, and then the bottom one, and then just to the side of the 125 line, that curves up and actually touches the 125 line, and then that curves up to about there, and then we've got the same, that curves up there. And so now finally we've got this point down here, and then we've got the U that comes up to the tip there. That U comes right the way up, touches up there, and then this one curves down, goes underneath the 185 line, and then goes up through the centre and up and touches there. And there you can see we very, very simply, just following the reference points and using those shapes, put in that spider's web part of Ant's tattoo. So now here it looks like some kind of skull with a cigarette. So just a long little rectangle. Here we've got another kind of rectangle shape, but we just curve that up. So you can see you've got a little rectangle and then a little triangle there for the top. Little triangle inside, little shape there which looks like an eye socket. Another little rectangle which is the teeth, and then we can just curve the bottom of that jaw, and then there's another little line that goes off there. So now down at the bottom of his arm there's a little triangle there. We've got an oval, and then another kind of oval on the top, and the line coming off. Can't quite tell what that is. But then this massive shapes here, there's actually a lady. So coming up the top of his left forearm, going up towards his watch where we've got this dark shadow caused by his forearm bones and muscles. Like I say, we've just got a massive shapes. So I'm actually going to start. In fact, I will start just with the head. So here, I'm just doing a C shape. And then again here, just another C. And this is all on the left hand side of this square from the 105 to the 125. So we've got a little C shape. Now there's a bit of a squiggle that looks like a flower in her hair. Draw the line up. And then you've just got a circle, and this is like the curl of a hair at the front of a head. And that just goes in, just follows it in, just a concentric circle going in on itself. And here we've got a tiny little D. And that's her left eye. And then her right eye, the same, another tiny little D. Little shape for a mouth. And that's worked quite quickly. Now here we can see another D shape over right on the cross on the centre line from the 185 horizontal dead on the centre line. There's just a D shape, and then we can draw that line up to underneath the chin. Coming off the D shape, we've just got a nice simple curve that comes down, and this is a hair at the top, so it's part of a D there, and that's a hair going up. Now here, kind of coming up, this will be her right arm, and if you kind of squint and just look at it, it looks like a giraffe's head. So you got the long neck with the patterning, and then a giraffe's head at the top kind of shape, but it isn't. It's a right hand, and she's obviously holding something. It might be a bunch of flowers. Now, so all we want is a nice simple little rectangle, and then here got a triangle, and that's going to be a hand. And I'm just putting, so just know that in these squares you can just put these little shapes in, and I'm keeping the image at this size so that you can actually see the reference and just see how you work across rather than zooming in. I may in the future do elements where I actually zoom into this, but you will lose the reference image on the right hand side. And this is about teaching you to get an overall drawing down and just following the shapes, and if you do it and learn the techniques, it will help you immensely. So now we need to just keep on getting these shapes in. So from this D, in fact actually there's a little triangle there, and then a little kind of banana shape it seems, and this is just wiggling a little V, which is the top of a hand. But then we can, where we've put that rectangle in, we can just curve it a little bit, and that's the forearm, and then going up to a top arm. And then there is a couple, but we'll detail that up later. So now we've got, coming from a head, a curve that comes up. So we've just got this kind of triangle shape, and that comes up from it here. So you can see it's like a C with a sharp point, and then again one on the inside, and this is a left arm, and she's got kind of squiggly tattoos down her arm, and then that goes up there, and here we've got a little triangle, and then a kind of crescent moon So here I'm drawing a crescent moon, and that's that kind of slightly darker tone there. And then above, you kind of got an oval potato shape with a bit of a sharp point at the end. And that goes over the 105 centre line. Curve there, little line going off over the corner. Now, we come down and we've just got some other shapes that we just need to fill in. So I'm going to do these little leaf shapes here. So there's one there, second there, and this looks like some kind of large flower. And so underneath that leaf, you've kind of got a D that's fallen backwards, or a semicircle, just a flat line with a bit of a curve going over. But the flat line is actually a little bit wiggled like an S. Then we've got a little circle there with a line through the centre, and then that curves down. We've got the shadow line of his arm going up, and then an oval and a rectangle, and then some squiggles, and then we can draw just a line up in between those, line up there, and we want a line following the angle of his wrist going up. And here you can see there's this brilliant C, sharp C shape, and then a kind of little rectangle at the bottom of it, and then another little line there, rectangle. Here we've got a little leaf shape, and then a curve, and then here we've got a nice oval ellipse with kind of another little one inside. Then we can bring off here, we've got this another kind of C shape there, and that's the inside part of that flower, and then the line comes off at the edge, and then that curves around under his arm, little line going up with another C there at the end, and then another little line underneath, and there's no tattoo there. So now we've got this final one right on the top. I'm doing kind of little light rectangle there, and then a box around the outside, curving a C there, and then the edge, another C coming round, and that's that kind of flower, and then just a wiggle in the middle. And that's pretty much it. So for his left arm, we've just got in, and you can see there's a lot of detail there that's actually built up on Ant's arm. So now up on his neck, right here on this line, the 105 line, to the right of the 125, you can just see a part of a tattoo that's just appearing. And you just got a little semicircle and a line coming down. And then there's something here on his neck as well, and that's just a little bit of a wiggly line, and you can just indicate the tattoo there. So now finally we've got his right arm. Just going to sharpen the pencil again, and this is great again, just simple shapes. So we're now on the 85 line to 205 in this little section down here. Now we've got a triangle, and then inside it we've got another triangle that's a bit darker, but we'll fill that in later, and then you've got a little rectangle. Now above it we've got another rectangle, a dark triangle. We can actually darken that in because it is quite dark. Then we've got another triangle, we'll leave that open, and a little bit of a rectangle coming underneath it, it's quite dark. And then here we've got a V. It's kind of just a simple V. And then another one next to it going back, and then just a line that comes down. Here we've got a little heart on its side. Just a little line that comes off. Below it, there's just a little rectangle with a couple of lines in it. And then here on the 65-205 line, right on the cross, we've got, I'm just going to draw a simple U shape. And this is this big rose that's kind of coming round. And then there's another one that goes right from the 65 line, curves up, goes to a little point, and it goes up and joins his watch here. So we've got another little slight curve to it. Now that's the edge of this big rose. But these are the green leaves that are underneath the rose. So we've got just a simple V shape that curves around and goes back up, and then we've got the same here for the next one. Just a nice simple V shape. You can put the line inside and the veins on the leaves. And now there you can see there's just a really good rectangle. And this is a kind of scroll, but you can see the bottom line doesn't actually join the end. It just comes down and curves around like an S. And then there's another little shape underneath. Coming off his arm, we've got a kind of banana shape, which is dark. And then we've got some leaves here. So kind of tear shape. And then we've got a triangle there with a little circle squiggle inside. Put the veins in. Now we've got this rose. And this rose that curves, if we actually start from the centre point, so we've got a little oval about there. And then we're just doing curved lines. Coming down to indicate the leaves. Now this one here is like a D shape. You've got the front of the D, but it's got a little point in it. And then we can curve the outside of that petal. This petal is just a U that comes around. Then there's another petal there. We've got a big C shape. And that's curving down and then comes back up. But that C shape, it has got a little point on it there. And the same for the bottom. We can follow that curve around and join the line up to the bottom of that petal. Now, this one at the top got a kind of just a little S curve on its side, so it just curves upwards, over and down, over the 65 line. So we've got the curve going up, goes over, comes down just over the 65 line. Now again, we've now got these leaves on the outside. Just a nice kind of triangle. Now we've got a D shape there. And then we've got a nice oval shape, kind of like a rugby ball. And then you've got this line that comes through the 185 line that curves, and it's just a C shape. So we've got that nice C that curves back round and touches that leaf. And you can bring the curve right the way around, and there's a little bud at the top. Again, another little triangle diamond shape for that leaf there. And this is how you build up all of these shapes. Another little triangle, there's the leaf there. There's quite a thick stem there we've got a nice large triangle. In fact, that, just going to extend that line over a bit. The sea of that rose there. So that's a bit further. And then we've got a very big leaf here. That curves back around, and then we've got another little point curve at the bottom for that leaf down there. And then finally we've got a little U shape for that leaf. And that's the outline down for that rose. So even though it's very complex, and it's even more complex over an arm, you break it down into simple shapes. It's quite simple. Now we've got another flower here. So we want the centre bud, just a circle, dot in the middle, and then there's just some little circle patterns around the outside. It's the kind of thing that you would doodle on just a piece of paper if you were like chatting. Like in the old days, people used to chat on the telephone, and there'd be a pad next to it, and the pad would invariably be filled with doodles. So now, coming off, I'm just underneath at the bottom, we've got a simple triangle. And then horizontally, that line comes off, making the triangle to that point too. And above, we've got a rectangle. Then coming off to this side, we can do another triangle, and then there's a bit of a dark mass of shapes, but here you can see it's like a chevron that comes over the 45 line. So coming off from this bud here, we've got a line like a stem that comes over, and then we've got this chevron. It's just simply a point, and then you curve the inside, and there's that chevron, and then we've got this kind of dark shape here. We can just wiggle some stuff in, and then you've got that dark branch there that comes up and under. Now, coming off this line that comes over the top, kind of right on the centre line of the 25 to 45, that's where the edge is, and we've just got a rugby ball shape. That's that leaf with a little point at the top. Then we can curve that line up. We've got a little leaf shape there with a little line coming off with a bud at the end. And then we want to do a leaf shape with a point at the end there. So we just put those dead simple shapes in, and now we can just actually detail up. And it's a bit like this leaf is a bit of a heart shape. So you just put a little curve and bring it round, and then follow the line inside, and then you've got a little circle at the top, and the same on the next one. So it's a bit of a heart shape, curves, it's not pointed in the middle, just keep it curved and soft, curve the line around, follow the pattern inside, then you've got the little circle at the top, and then we can do the same for the edge of that leaf, and then the same here on the top, follow the curve, and that just gives you the detail on that little flower that's on there. Now we have this last little bit up in this corner. I'm just going to sharpen my pencil again, of his right arm. And again, just nice simple shapes. So now I'm going to start from the edge, and here we've got a nice simple leaf, which is a simple triangle. This one comes over the 25 line. Then we've got the next leaf inside, and we've got this lovely curve, and then you've got like a little bird shape underneath, and then follow that curve down. We've got a U shape there with a line going next to it, another line, then we've got this really nice, it's like the bottom of a heart for this leaf shape that's coming down here. It curves down, you get the point, and then it curves back up, and then inside you've got another line that follows it, and then above you've got another one. So that curves down, you've got the point, and then that goes up and over, and then here you've got a little U shape, a little semicircle inside, same on that side. On here you get the curve, and then there's just a couple of little wiggles in this shadow area here. Again, it's just like a little V shape at the bottom and a line next to it and one in the shadow. Now, coming off the bottom of this leaf, we've got another leaf that is above this little bud. So I just put a little dot on, and then I'm just going to curve the U down over to the point, and then follow it and curve it going back up. And then we've got a horizontal line, another one above it. Inside that leaf we've got a line that comes down, follows it, you've got the kind of white border to the edge, and then here there's just a couple of little marks that come over, little dab marks. And then finally we've got this triangle here for this leaf, and put the veins in. And so that is all of that detail in on Ant's outline and all of his tattoos. Now I know that was quite a long time, but there's lots of tiny little shapes. Every single one of these is an individual little drawing on their own, but by breaking it down into shapes you make it really, really simple. So again, I actually put all of these lines down very dark so that you can see them, so I hope that's really helped and that you've had fun actually putting this down. But now I'm going to rub out all of the grid lines, and then we can actually start shading it. So I am going to hold the paper down with my hand on top of the paper that I've been resting it on, and it just stops me from really ripping the paper off. We've got this big area of his shirt underneath. I need to get all of that out. Area around his chest and his arm. Now everything else is actually quite detailed, but I'm just going to pull off some of the grid lines from around the outside of his body and just kind of do this a little bit quickly and a little bit straggly. And it just, you know, it's almost like quick sketching but with a rubber. It actually looks a little bit arty when the grid lines are just removed from the outside and then you leave them going towards the edge of the paper. So I've pulled all of those off. Now I'm going to use, again, the same thing. I use these Stettler Mars plastic just because I like them. I've used them for years and they're one of my favourite rubbers. So you find something that works for you, that's absolutely brilliant. So now within his face I've got a Mars plastic ruler that's kind of in a pen, and it just gives me a lot more detail. In fact, where have they gone? Oh, they actually turned up today. Oh, never mind. I do have an electric eraser, so just hang on a second. Yes, I have my electric eraser. Now, I mentioned this in there's a lesson called How to Draw a Zombie with a Zombie Pencil. Ooh. Ooh, that's interesting. And I actually showed this, but I actually found that I hadn't got any spare rubbers that go in the top of these. This is made by Derwent. And like I say, I've had it for years but never really used it. So because it's got such a small rubber on the top, and it actually kind of spins or vibrates, it means you can get into tight detail areas and you just press on lightly. Can't lock the actual motor on. I'll just clean that dirt. That's actually quite good. This is going to be an interesting tool to use. But it means I can get in the really tight detail areas without obliterating. Ooh, that was a strange noise. And this is especially good. I mean, I could use my putty rubber on Ant's arm here, all around the tattoo, so I can get inside those webs, inside the hem of the shirt, without obliterating the underdrawing that we've actually put in. If you press on too hard, it kind of stops the motor, so the motor isn't too tough, too strong, that it'll kind of rip it out of your hands, which is a good thing. That's actually quite good. So here now, down on his arm, I can get rid of all of these little construction lines in and around. Like I say, the actual replacements got like a pack of 30. That's actually quite good. So they should last me through the year with all the videos that I'm going to be doing. And I bet you can use these for some interesting effects as well. This we shall find out. There's one on his chest next to the little froggy, underneath the arm down there, inside that shirt. Now the other thing is the battery that's in this has been in for a long time, so I might just replace the batteries. This could actually be a bit more powerful and effective if I've got new batteries in. We shall find that out later. So anyway, that is now pretty much all rubbed out. That was quite good, that was. I'm glad I've got those little battery, those little new eraser tips. Again, it's a Derwent electric eraser, and Derwent make lovely graphite pencils up in the Lake District in England. And I think it was in the area of the Lake District that graphite was discovered by some monks underneath a tree that had kind of fallen over. And they first started using it for writing their manuscripts many years ago. So there we have, and rubbed out. Again, when I swept that off, I use that brush because it means I'm not smudging with my hand, and it's just a light way of actually dusting off your drawing. And I swept it onto the paper that I've been using to protect the paper from my hand. So now because we've got rid of a lot of it, I can actually see there's just a few more little lines that I want to get rid of, because there was loads of rubbing out little bits left. Hey, this is pretty good, this is. I think we can have some fun with this. This is like how I got my electric pencil sharpener. It's a revelation. Anyway, that's fantastic. So now I'm going to, and again, honestly, collect. If you just collect on a piece of paper your rubbings out, you wouldn't believe how dirty your floor can become. And then you'll tread it through the house if you just sweep it off on your side. If you can collect it, that's brilliant. If you've got a handheld vacuum, you could even use that. That would work as well. Try and keep clean. Now, there is a good thing about drawing as well, that you can actually be very, very messy and creative, and that's fine too. But I actually like trying to keep clean as much as possible, just so as I don't get pencil and paint everywhere all around the house. Now I'm just picking up those lines that have just been rubbed out, and there we have the complete outline of Ant Middleton down. That's pretty good, and we can now start to shade him in. So now we are going to start shading Ant in, and we've got some quite nice strong highlights, and the light's kind of coming down from just in front, slightly diagonally, just so you can see that direction. But we need to just get a good, quick kind of mid-tone down. So I'm filling pretty much all of his flesh down, and then we'll just take out very quickly the stronger highlights. So I've filled everything down in his face, his neck and ear, and we've got a very strong highlight here. So I'm pressing on very lightly. Again, the same on his fingers. And we're just drawing this in quickly over all of those construction lines of the tattoos that we actually put in. And this is all with a 2B pencil. Everything we've done so far is with a 2B pencil. And I keep saying it is my trusty 2B pencil, and it's just, I just find it the most versatile drawing tool that I've used for years. So now we've put all of that tone in, and it's quite nice and flat tone. Now I'm just going to use the kitchen roll. I'm just going to quickly soften it a little bit all the way around. I'm just pushing the pencil around, and it just kind of smooths it off, but you still get, you can leave the kind of scratchy lines on his neck and round on his arms. There are some signs of those scratchy lines, but I just like doing that little bit of softening. Again, it's just my personal preference. You can smudge with your finger, you can use a kitchen roll. I do use the actual paper smudging tools, and they are very, very good. So now I'm just going to bring the paper in so that I don't smudge now and get dirt on my hand underneath. I'm just going to pull off the strongest highlights. So I'm using the tip of the putty rubber, and that's the edge of his ear, coming down to the bottom of his earlobe, the top part on the centre of his ear. Now here there's a fantastic triangle of light above his left eyebrow, going up the side of his head, top of his forehead there, you've got this kind of V. And then the actual bridge of his nose. Just two little highlights inside. The edge of his cheek. Front part of his bottom lip. A triangle just above his moustache. And then round the edge of his eye. Coming down over his cheek. And that just helps us, again, the back of his neck, to have those lighter tones. Now, you could have filled in and been very careful and left the paper bare, and that's absolutely fine, but it can take a little bit longer. So here we've got the top of his hand, top of his arm, his left arm coming up to the hem of his t-shirt. Now here we've got that nice kind of banana shaped curve highlight coming round. I'm just dabbing on the top and then coming up through the lady tattoo up to his watch. Again, I'm just dabbing above it right to the edge of his wrist. There's a highlight there, and then through down the bottom there you can see there's that strong highlight, and on the back of his elbow there's a little bit of highlight, and then even down the edge of his arm, kind of reflected highlights, and even over that web there. So now we need to do the same. We've got the top of his right arm where it's folded, a little bit on that crease, underneath his watch coming over the rose. And I keep twisting the putty rubber into a new point because you can see it's actually very grey. Now that's grey because it's filled with graphite pencil that it's picked up. And really, this is getting to the end. It's very malleable because I've used it so much. But it is getting to the end of its life because it's so filled with pencil. And then you do have to use a new one. And then we want reflected highlight underneath that part on his arm. So now we've just put in a good mid-tone and pulled out the highlights. So now I'm going to indicate some of the slightly darker tones, and we're going to work down from the top. And we got where his hairline joins the top of his forehead. Here we've got this fantastic shape, this kind of V shape in the centre of Ant's forehead, and that comes over to the side. Again, I'm using the kind of flat. When I did all of the filling in of the tone at first, I'm using all of the flat of the pencil because it's nice and soft. Now, again, his eyebrow, where I rubbed out, I'm just darkening that down. And we've got this fantastic D shape of shadow. Just darkening his eye down. And that's all of that dark there. Again, the same on his right eye. Crease. The dark on his eye a little bit, right in the corner. Darkness actually of his eyebrow. Same for his right eyebrow. And then the creases underneath his eye. Just some quick, simple little cross hatching. Now you can see you've already got really good, nice shadow tonal value on his forehead and on his eye, just starting to give us more solid definition. So now I'm coming over to his ear. You've got the shadow up in the top. That's kind of like a long thin triangle. Then we've got this little triangle on the side. The entry to his ear canal. It's that nice little P shape. And then we've got quite a nice little curved bit of dark shadow there. We can extend the shadow of his ear canal out. And then the shadow coming over. Then we've got the shadow underneath his ear, coming down, caused by his beard as well, and his jaw. And that comes all the way down. And then we've got these couple of little crease lines on his neck. We can just increase some of the shadow. Just a little bit of cross hatching. So now on Ant's cheek, coming down, and then we've got this kind of horizontal line of shadow coming across, and then that highlight on his cheekbone. Just got to leave that line there. Then we can increase the shadow on his cheek. Going up the side of his head. And again, you just keep working around a little bit at a time. Then we've got the shadow, there's it on the left hand side of his nose. Little bit of a line there, and then where the nose curves around and joins his cheek, got that nice darker shadow right in that crease line, and then it folds back round onto the top of his nose, and his nostril is quite dark, and then we've got that little bit of shadow underneath the bottom of his nose. Shadow on the side of his cheek. Now we can fill in the line again of his lip, just the dark, and his top lip is a nice kind of rich tone, but then his bottom lip, you've got this little line coming round, but it's got a lot of highlight on, and then a little bit of shadow right in the corner. Now, without his hair in, it kind of looks like, you know, this is Ant as a white-haired old man in many, many years to come. But we need to actually put in a lot of the shadow, well, a lot of the dark on his beard, and that will make a difference. And then the same when we put the shirt in. But now we're going to come down quickly and just add some of these darker tones on his hands. Now the tops of his fingers have highlights going all the way along. But then very gently and carefully we can just put some shadow where each finger is next to the next one along on his hand. So I'm just looking and just adding that tone, putting a couple of little lines over for the creases in his knuckles. Same for that finger, and there's a shadow cast across. Now on his arm, because we've got the web in, we can actually see where that dark shadow caused by his muscle is, and that creases over, and then again the same around the back of his arm. And I'm just using the nice soft flat side of the pencil. And I'm just filling that tone in quickly. Again, his elbow right underneath the bottom, and then there's a kind of curve around that web, and you can see from the web where you want the darker shadow coming up, and then it goes along his arm up to the watch. And then the same coming off the bottom of his arm, we've got a slightly darker shadow, and then that goes up to the edge, a little along the edge of his arm, and we've got the shadow cast from his left arm over his right arm and down by the watch. And then again here we can just use the tattoos to help us put in the shadows, because now we've got rid of the grid lines, but all the lines that you put down for the tattoos actually help you in putting your shadow tonal textures in. So now we've got right down the bottom, and you can see there's a kind of reflected highlight, and we've left it the same on this end, so you just don't do the dark tone right to the edge of the line. And then we've got to curve that up a little bit, and then a light tone down the edge. And there you can see we've actually got a lot more shape and form now in Ant's arms. But the brightness of all of the shirt is stopping us from actually seeing the fullness of the picture. But the next job is going to be to actually fill in his hair. Now I'm still going to be using the 2B pencil. And remember, sketch in the direction of the hair. Now, I had a comment recently, will I do a tutorial just on hair? Now, I may do well in the future, but every single tutorial that I do with a person has hair. A lot of the gentlemen have beards. So I keep teaching you what to do for hair. Now I'm doing this quickly. If you want more detail, you just got to spend hours and hours and hours more. If you watch my time lapses of some of the people that I've done on the drawings that have taken me days, then what I tell you now, I'm implementing there, but taking a lot longer, keep sharpening my pencil and building the detail up. So here we've got these lovely lines coming off the front, but we've got these stronger highlights, so I'm not going to fill in everywhere, but I'm just indicating in the direction that Ant's hair is going the lines, and you can see I am leaving that large amount of space for his hair, the highlights on the top of his hair. Now I'm coming over the back and the side, and I keep twisting the pencil so I'm getting a slightly sharper point. Again, this is still just the 2B. You can see there he's brushed his hair right back. And there you can see we've got the highlight starting with the actual shape and direction of his hair around his head. So now we're coming down the side. We've got this triangle of hair, and this is quite dark, and I'll probably go over it using the 4B. That goes over the top of his ear, and it's kind of dark down to about there, and then it's very dark right around the back of his ear. Now I've just kind of gone over his ear a little bit. There we go. Yeah, that electric rubber is pretty good. And I've just done it again, but fortunately not as darkly, so I can go in with the putty rubber. Still not strong enough. Now the top of his ear comes round and goes there. That's it. So now we've got all of the dark round the back of Ant's ear. I do need to put in that little shadow in his ear because I just rubbed it out. Now, right to the back. Now we've got a nice highlight here, so I'm just going to not fill in all the area. Now this pencil's getting quite blunt, which is great for filling in all of this dark around the back of Ant's head. Now I'm just going to sharpen it. And this will allow me now to put some sharper, darker, more detailed points in, especially in that little highlighted bit there. Again, I'm still just twisting the pencil. Now if I was doing this on a more detailed drawing, I might even be using my little mechanical pencils, because the point stays the same and you just click the top to keep getting more lead coming out. So, but we're just doing this lesson to give a good impression. And as I keep on saying, if you want to do more detailed drawings, you've got to put more hours in. Now I am leaving the paper as bare as I possibly can, right on the front, for that strong highlight at the top. But going through, you can kind of see, like this area here, it's not as strong, so I'm just filling those lines in more. Again, even the same here on the top. It's not a big pure area of white. So again, you just fill in and you see now we've got that impression of the hair going back, and it's the highlights that you've left that give that actual impression. So now, again, just detailing up a little bit in his eyes as I go down, adding that little bit of dark. Now we want right underneath his nose, we've got a really dark patch caused by the shadow created by his nose as it comes down. Carefully fill that in, right to the side of his mouth. And then we've got the darker part of his beard coming under. some highlights on the top, so I'm just filling in some lines, darker line to the edge. And then from the corner of his mouth you've got a nice dark patch coming down. Again, I'm just doing vertical lines. Keep turning the pencil, because that's the kind of direction of the beard. Right off from underneath his bottom lip. Oh, went over the lip there. So we can't have that. That's got to come off. So that's looking pretty good. Now let's see if we can just get this beard in. So here on the edge of his, got this shadow coming down off his ear, and then it's just kind of fuzzy over the shadow coming right the way down it, right to this dark patch. So I'm just indicating the kind of fuzzy lines as they come off. Again, just twisting the pencil, sharpen it quickly, because these are lighter whiskers on the side of his face. Just need to put a little bit of tone in there. And this is just like kind of cross-hatching, what you would do with a pen, just indicating where all of the whiskers are as we come down Aunt Middleton's face. And then we've got a nice kind of U of shadow here, right the way to the edge. I've said before, I really like scratching in and getting this glossy effect where you can see the lines, and you can kind of get some matte black, you know, whether it's charcoal or other kind of pencils, and you can get a really nice flat black tone in, and that's something I might experiment with in the future. But I love doing these quick drawings. Now there, straight away you can see Ant's face, because you've now put the dark in, has really come to life. And we're going to do some more work on the tonal values, but also on his arm we've got the details, but we next need to fill in all of that shirt. So now quickly we are going to fill in the shirt and his watch, and I'm going to use the 4B pencil for most of the shirt, and we're just going to quickly knock in the watch, and I'm using the 2B pencil for this, and I'm putting in the darker first. Right down, there's a little kind of highlighted bit shown. We've got the buttons, and each of the buttons have got a kind of highlight showing on the top, going to the edge, and then where the arm comes out that the strap attaches to. And then you've got this nice curved shape of the bevel at the top of the watch. And then that arm that comes down again, highlight showing on the top. Little bit of dark, just going to sharpen the pencil. Now we've got a nice sharp shadow line going all the way around the edge, but lighter as it comes around this side. So the light coming from this side you can see is creating this darker shadow, and it really does look like it's 10:10. There we go. If you really look at it, it's 10:10 on his watch. And so we've got that 1 in there. We've got that 0. So I'm doing a little circle at the back. And then we've got a straight line for the 1. And there's something like a horizontal line underneath, and there's a couple of little, so just draw a rectangle and leave that showing through. Then you can fill in the rest of the tone just gently and carefully, not as dark as the edge. But then you'll see on this side it's a little bit lighter, the kind of reflected green of the trees in. So I'm filling that in carefully, and then you just put a little bit of cross hatching on, just pinching the putty rubber up so as I can highlight the bottom of that 0. And there you've got the watch just nicely filled in. Now we've got the top of the bezel, I think it is, on a watch, and there's a little point on there, another one on there, but you've got a dark line on the back, kind of mid-tone as it comes round, and this, because it's curved, you're getting the reflection, so it's brighter here than everywhere else. So now I'm just filling in a little bit of tone there. You've got a stronger highlight on this side, but just curving it, and that's how you get the reflected highlights on the watch. And then again, just coming down, I'm using the side of the pencil now, just building that shadow up underneath that watch, and that will make a difference for us when we fill in the shirt. Now if you check out Shaku Kanemason in my portraits time-lapse, I did the drawing of him and I did the detail on his face and his hands and his cello, but left the rest of his clothes and everything else as just an outline like this. It's just an arty thing. I quite liked it. It was fun to do. But we're not going to do this with Ant. So I've swapped to my 4B pencil. And again, I am now filling this in on his blue t-shirt in exactly the same way as we did his skin, but it's a slightly darker tone. Now B is for black, remember, H is for hard. HB is kind of in the middle. And so 2H is harder, you'll get a lighter line, 4H, 6H, 8H, whatever. And then B is softer, and it's just easier to make blacker tones with the B pencils. So the higher the number, 4B, 6B, 8B, there are odd numbers as well. You can actually get a nice black tone or a softer tone down faster, but these pencils wear out really quick. Again, I've used the 2B and the 4B pencil on most of my how to draw lessons, and the reason I don't use my mechanical pencils on these is so that I'm trying to replicate what you guys can have basic, easy access to. You should be able to get hold of simple grade pencils, 2B, 4B, from online stores, and tins will have those pencils in. But if you do have an art store close to you, I don't anymore, then you should be able to get them, but you'll be able to get them online, and you'll be able to create your drawings. Now again, I've just filled all of that in with a basic mid-tone. So now I'm just going to push that around, just using kitchen roll, and just soften it all off. Going right to the watch. Now it's much darker underneath his arms, but you see I'm not being particularly careful. It doesn't matter if you go over the edge because it's a looser arty sketch, which is nice. Now before we go any further, I'm going to come back in with the putty rubber, and I'm just gently lifting some of the pencil off on the highlights, on the creases, and where I need them, because when we smooth things over again with the kitchen roll, it will fill that in. So even though this is pulling off pencil right back to the paper, the highlights won't be as strong when we've finished filling in Ant's shirt. So again, now I'm just not using a point, I've just flattened, curved off the bottom of the putty rubber, and I'm just dabbing, which is taking off some of the graphite, some of the pencil on Ant's chest muscles. And again, the same, where you can see that highlight going up there, you want to do the same on the arm, and the same on his right arm. Now this is all in shadow underneath. Now back in with the 4B pencil, and we are going to put the absolute darks in. So that curves right the way up. Got a little, now I'm resting my left hand again on top of my right hand and using the freedom of my arm so that I'm not resting on the paper, doing these nice and quickly. Again, the shadow caused by his chin underneath. We've got the construction lines that we put in, so we know how far we want to come down. And I'm using the flat of the pencil, not twisting it. And so you've got that kind of soft edge. I'm not doing very crisp lines, because fabric over muscle has soft edges, unlike the watch, which has got hard metallic edges. So now right into that beard, we can push that dark over, and then up the edge of his chin, and that all becomes one great mass. Now that's really lifted the image together, you know, giving it a lot more clarity. So again, the same here for the shadows caused by his right arm going towards his chest. And I'm just putting these little darks in. Again, coming down to his chest over the top of his right hand. Now where we smoothed over, we will pick out the highlights again of his fingers. Coming down over the top of his arm. of his arm over to the right of his chest. Got that shadow shape going up there. So now, with his shoulders up on the top, we can increase the shadow that's coming down from his head. And the same coming just over to his right shoulder, the right of his arm. And then we've got these little smile banana shapes where we want to indicate some of the shading. Again, this crease up here. And then got a darker set of creases there coming down to the right of his chest. Now, again, just need to sharpen the pencil quite quickly, because even though we're using the side of the pencil, it still wears out really fast. So now, just did the very tip just pling off. We've got a nice dark that's coming down. I really do need to just put my paper on, coming down to the top of his fingers. Just because I've got to do this just to be careful so that I don't go over his fingers too much. So here we've got a dark little point. That goes up there. Now we've got this shadow here, little one there, and then these curves and these folds going up. So you can see there we've got a slightly darker one, same there on that curve, a little bit of extra there. And then we can fill some of the tone in again. I'm doing this nice and loose around the frog, over the top of his chest. Again, I'm filling this in really quickly. If you want a super smooth tone and doing the shapes of all the folds, it will take you hours, and it's a beautiful thing to do. Some of my oil paintings have taken me 3, 4, 5 and 6 weeks to complete, and you just have to put the hours in. You literally clock on and you put the hours in. And if you want to do that with a pencil, absolutely fantastic, because that's how you learn and you develop your skills. Whereas I'm trying to give you the basics to show you what you can do with a pencil on a piece of paper. There, that's looking pretty good. And so now I'm just going to sharpen my pencil again. We are going to fill in the shadow underneath Ant's arms. Now I'm being very careful. Right underneath his arms. got this curve of his right arm now, coming around to his elbow. And now I need to really come to the side. That, filling that shape and area in. Now hopefully that's given me enough of a buffer zone to actually fill all of this shade in quite quickly. And this is what then really brings together a drawing, is when you start putting, and you've got all of the values in, because your darks and your midtones really give clarity to your highlights. So you can see now I'm just trying to fill all of this space in without going over his hands and obliterating the arms with the tattoos, because all of that preparation work is so critical to keeping your drawing accurate and good. Again, I'm not pressing on too hard, I'm just trying to go for a decent darker tone, because there's no strong highlights down here and I'm just building up slowly. It's easier, it's better to build slowly and add tone than try and take it away. So there we've got all of that shirt put in underneath Ant. So again, I'm coming back with the kitchen roll. I'm just smoothing that quickly. I mean, that's filthy straight away. So I'm now turned to a clean piece, clean area on it. Now again, I've gone over our little frog logo, but I'll pull that out. Again, just smoothing the top of his chest. You can see that's now given us a much more together tone across his chest. Right in, down onto the top of his arms, underneath his chest. I need to bring that down over the top of his arm. Again, just coming back in, but I'm dabbing very gently with the putty rubber, and it's just pulling off enough of the tone. That needs to be smudged a bit. There we go. Now clean that edge off completely. I'm just pulling off a little and then literally just smudge it with my finger, because my finger's just there rather than keep on picking up the kitchen roll, and it's quick and direct. So that pulled off quite a bit on that part of his chest, a little bit too much. So literally I've just used a bit of the kitchen roll that had got graphite on, and I've just put the tone back on. That's better. Over the top of the kind of frog. These have got sharp points because the folds are quite narrow and tight. Again, the top of his arm, his shoulder. And now, just need to, again, just gently smooth that down. I'm going to pull out the frog. So just within the shapes, because you've got the lines there, just pulling out our little frog. Now, again, on his arm, we've got to detail that up. I'm just in the tops of his fingers. On the top of his hand. And where we've smudged over, we can just pull that out. That's looking pretty good. But now we really need to build the dark up underneath Ant's arms. So I'm just pressing on stronger with the 4B pencil, and it is just disappearing. This is where you can be quite loose and quite expressive, and just indicate where the shadows are, and that looks quite good. Again, I'm holding the paper so as it doesn't rip itself off from the masking tape that's holding it in the corners. And I'm only using the 4B pencil. An 8B would probably be better. Some makes do go up to 9B. I've said this in other videos, probably say it in every single video ever on, and that's, you know, I can only ever remember pencils going up to 8B. I don't know when the 9B appeared, but to me that was like the kind of pencil artistic equivalent of Spinal Tap, with the electric guitar amplifier going up to 11. Yeah, I've got my Marshall stack, it goes up to 11. It's like, yeah, right, okay. Just a bit of fun. The spoof rockumentary. This is Spinal Tap. But yeah, I just think a 9B pencil, that is the pencil equivalent of an amplifier going up to 11, not 10. So now we've got this dark coming down his left hand side underneath his left arm. And you got like these little creases and the folds. Again, just need to sharpen the pencil again. And I'm essentially just cross-hatching, building up the layers quickly. On the dark right underneath his arm. And that's pretty good. Again, we're just building the tone up and giving that impression of all of that shadow coming down underneath his arm. Again, you can just fill it in as much as you want, and you can just indicate where the creases are and the folds as it wraps around Ant's body. and reacts against where his arms are holding it against his chest to where it comes down over the top of his hips. And that's a lot of graphite that we have just put on very quickly. Just got to sharpen my pencil again. So now I want to just quickly increase. Oh, the tip's just plinged off again. The shadow caused by his chin and beard. And then we're getting closer to the kind of, well, the tonal harmony, but we're getting the tones that we actually want on the drawing really coming together. And we got that dark point of that shadow that comes down there. Dark of the shadow in that crease. Just want the sharper point again. And now I'm just detailing up some of these creases now and the shadows. Got a nice dark shadow there on the corner of Ant's shirt. Bit of a thicker line where that comes around. And then we've got these. Again, I'm using the 4B pencil. These shadows that come down on the folds on his right arm. There's the second one. In that kind of smile. Then we've got the third one in this V. And a slight one further down. And then right in the corner, coming up, there's a darker shadow over the top of his watch, and then right down into the corner where his chest meets his right arm. And then we've got a kind of darker, but there's a reflected highlight inside, so you just want to put the tone in that little bit more. Again, I'm just cross-hatching now. Little kind of leaf shape there to the right of the watch. Increasing the darks a little bit on the watch. And the shadow coming over the top. And then you can build that out right on that corner. And then going up onto his right shoulder, coming down from his head, a shadow. Again, I'm just using really nice, quick cross-hatching techniques now. And you can see how it's just giving us some real nice definition and shape on Ant's right arm. So now we want this crease, the density of the black inside, where it then goes up and joins the shadow at the top, coming down from underneath his chin. can thin that up to that highlight, and then here we've got these darker shadows just on his chest. And you can see you've just now got more form because you've added more tonal value quickly. And again, it's just simple cross-hatching. Down now on his right side of his chest, we've got a darker patch. Now above his arms, you can see there's little hairs. It just kind of makes it fuzzy, so you haven't got to go and do a really crisp line right next to where his arm meets his shirt, because the hairs on his arms kind of make it a little bit fuzzy and slightly blurred, so that's quite nice because you haven't then got to do a solid crisp line. And that comes out when we're actually doing our, like the line I drew at first has totally disappeared when we've been just doing a little bit of rubbing out and adding more tone. So now we've got his fingers, that comes down, and we've got a little shadow coming down into that corner and the top of his arm. I'm just gently building up that tone. And we've got a kind of triangle here of shadow tone that then increases and comes up. Got a triangle of shadow coming out from this fold. Then up on his collar. Just increase that shadow a little bit. The hemlines. Now, right in this corner, I'm resting my hand again on top of my left hand on top of my right hand, rather than using the paper, because I'm not going for mega detail, but my hand is a brilliant rest. And you can get the detailed lines that you actually need. Coming down past the froggy's leg. Just filling in that little bit above the frog. And then got this brilliant shape right up at the top. Darker shadow in that crease corner, same there. Again, coming right the way down to this crease in the corner of his arm. It's just a case of looking round, looking for your tones, and then building up and adding little by little. Again, I'm doing this quickly in quite an impressionistic way, as quick as I can. I mean, this is a long video. It's a bit like when we did Mark Billy Billingham's portrait. I started off thinking that was going to be like a 1.5 hour to 1 hour 45 minutes, like Foxy and Ollie Ollerton, but the drawing took over and I just enjoyed it immensely. And so that's the same with what I'm doing here. I'm just literally enjoying doing the drawing, and I'm just going to keep working until it's complete. So again, because this is a 3/4 body with arms, an upper body with arms portrait, it's actually quite complex because of the tattoos. So that added a half hour on, at least, just actually getting those tattoos in, and we've got to detail those up in a bit. So anyway, just keep having a break, press pause, go over your work and keep checking it, and just enjoy the process of drawing. And while we're all in all of this lockdown, you've got a lot of time. So develop your drawing skills, because you have the time. And again, with me recording this, I've now been doing this over 2 days, just fitting it in. Because you can stop, you don't have to just sit down and do it all in one go. And that's the beauty of drawing. You can just do as much or as little as you want. So we've got this crease here, coming down off his arm here. Just filling in some of this shading. That actually looks quite good. Again, I'm just filling in that tone a little bit on his arm, just to bring that together. So now we've got the little bit above his hemline on his shirt. There's quite a strong highlight there at the back, and then on the tops of these, and the top of his shoulder, again even on this side. Now my fingers were getting very dirty. I did actually go and wash them. Again, just so as I can get a little bit more control. That's looking quite good. Now I'm just going to come back in, and I'm going to use my smudging tool. Again, because it's a drawing tool. And this helps just to push the tone around a little bit, but in a much more directed fashion, which is brilliant. You can see that's really consolidated the dark, but then you can press on and just gently increase the tones where you need them in a much more accurate way. And underneath folds in shirts, it's actually quite good. So especially here on these sides, see, that really helps just to push that together and make that arm just really come together now. And just gently up to the top of his shoulder. You can just get rid of the absolute highlights, because they're not bright white highlights. And that's looking pretty good. Oh, I'm really impressed with that. So now I'm going to use this smudging tool, because it's got lots of graphite on as well, for the darks, to increase the darks that I need on his arms. So we've got the real darker tone, and I'm just gently filling in to the edge, so you've got that kind of reflected highlight. And then here, coming off his elbow, we've got a nice tone that comes around, and again the same right the way up his arm underneath. Just wiping a little bit. I mean, that's very black at the tip. And these do start as a long stick, and this is kind of coming to the end, but it just still works. So there's no point in getting rid of the tool that's still working. Little shadow by the edge of the watch underneath his wrist there. And then here it's kind of much darker, but and then we've got a little shade up by his fingers, and then the shirt there, we can darken that down a little bit. Shadow on the sides of his fingers. And where his arm creases down, curves down, sorry. Just wiping that off again a little bit. Filling in a little bit of tone. And then you've got this nice shape coming down, lesser than here, through that spider's web, through the lady tattoo, going all the way up. Then we've got a nice little triangle of tone there, and in the crease in the folds where his arm goes there, and again down by this flower, and we can push the tone up to the edge of his arm underneath the shirt. His elbow, we've got this darker tone, and then that just comes up. Shade a little bit of the edge of his elbow in, and then this other forearm muscle, we've got a darker tone that kind of comes under and through that rose. And then right the way to where his left arm crosses his right arm. And so we just bring that tone down, increase that little bit there. You can see we've just got a slightly reflected highlight there right underneath. And now that is still quite bright, so we need to just gently fill that in, because that's still underneath. It shouldn't be as bright as the highlights right on the top. Again, I'm just gently filling in as if I was cross-hatching with a pencil. And then the same coming down. Now we need to do similar kinds of tonal shading up on Ant's head. So I'm pushing the tone up underneath his ear, and then the shadow right in his ear, coming down from his beard. Now this bit is great, and we can just really, I'm just going to remove some of the graphite. We've got this little shape here, little curved shape at the top of his head. I'm gently bringing the shadow right round the edge. And then we've got this tonal little part at the front of his forehead, and then this kind of V in between his eyes. Now, again, just wiping that tone off, that graphite off a little bit. So coming up from his eye, Got that tone that goes over it and then goes right the way up. And just filling it in gently to the sides. And then his cheek. Got this great, lovely shape of tone coming down around his cheek, underneath his nose. And that's just really accentuated the shape and form of Ant's head. Now again, in his actual eye socket, you've got that D shape that we put in right at the beginning. And then here, coming down from his eye, got a little bit of tone, just filling that area in. Again, the creases that are coming off. And then there's tone over his nostril, just curves up, back around the side. Now, I'm also going to just push in some of the tone in Ant's hair. Remember, we only used the 2B pencil. And his beard. But you just push and fill that tone in quickly. Again, here we've got a little bit more dark tone coming down off his hair. And just using that smudging tool has just saved you a lot amount of time with a pencil, and it's just a brilliant drawing technique. So again, I'm now just coming in and picking out the little highlights that we need on Ant's forehead. Really pinching this to a sharp point and then indicating some of the highlights in Ant's hair again. Just dabbing, and it just gives you that little bit of reality. Now you can go back in with a kind of ink pen or paint or chalk, and I've mentioned before on the Avicii drawing I had to go back in and put some of the highlights in his hair using paint, and I just used white gouache. I've tried to make a cream tone the same as the paper so as it actually matches, but sometimes it just doesn't matter. But I really like this cream paper, and obviously white gouache is a bit different, so I try and mix it. But when you're putting the wet paint on, it actually pulls up tone from the graphite, so it actually greys it. So again, it's just down to choice. I might end up using an actual bleached white paper one day, and that way I can use white directly. Now these are the white whiskers on the side of his beard going up to his hair. Now got a little highlight on his upper right eyelid, the same on his left eyelid, very slight, and then highlight on his cheek. I'm just dabbing off little bits. Little reflected highlights in, and then right in the corner, kind of little reflected highlight in there. And then this triangle of light on his nose. And then the creases on the side. That's looking pretty good. Now on the top of his ear, highlight on the central part, and then on his earlobe at the bottom, and then his neck at the bottom, and on the side has got a stronger highlight. And you've got these fantastic little crease lines in. And we're getting close now to actual final details. So I'm now just dabbing the highlights on his arms where they need to be stronger. Again, his fingers. Get the highlights back on his fingertips and on the tops. And that's looking pretty good. I hope you're enjoying this. This is fantastic. Over the tattoos, that corner part, a little bit on the elbow again. And now his watch. Crisping up that chrome ring, just picking that off slightly. And it helps it to stand out. And then you see that just looks metallic and helps it actually stand off the page. So anyway, we are nearly there. Final last few details, and we've got to fill in all the tattoos, but that's pretty good. I hope you're enjoying it. We will finish this off very soon. So now we're going to really bring in the darks in Ant's hair, and here you can see from this corner there's a triangle of dark right at the back. And I'm just twisting and putting those really dark sharp lines in. And remember, just this is a 4B, so you really need to twist kind of every mark that you make. And then at the top of his head, at the back, we've got a few darker flashes. And then through his hair, from the front to the back. And then right at the back. And we've got lovely dark all the way down, and I'm just softening it where the shadow comes over his neck that little bit. And then over his ear. So that just gives us a little bit more definition. And at the front, I'm just going to sharpen this, because now we've got some finer little sharp detail lines just to add in. So here, going up on the side of his head, of his forehead, we've got those lines. And there's a little bit of an increased shadow just underneath his hairline, where that comes down and round. And some darker details on the side of his beard. And then here, right on this point, we've got this triangle of dark in his beard. we can just increase that. Shadow in the corner of his mouth. So now I'm just resting my hand on top of my left hand again on top of my right hand, just so as we can put these darker shadow details down over his top lip. The line in between his top and lower lip. Darken the shadow down in the corner. And then darken just that little bit coming up round the corner of his nose, from his nostril. Dark on this edge. Little bit of curve underneath his lip. That's looking pretty good. Now we've really got a nice dark line on Ant's eyebrow. The same on the right eyebrow. And then we've got this dark on his right eye, just a little line over the top, and dark right in the, just a little dark part right in the centre. Now Ant's got very piercing blue eyes, but this is a very small drawing, so I'm just taking some of the pencil off and then increasing the pupil, and then we've got this shadow right on the edge, and then his eyebrow coming off up into that corner. Then on this right eye we want to increase the shadow. I'm going to sharpen the pencil because this is the 4B and I just need to be careful. And we've got a horizontal line that comes over and then the crease extends, and that's his upper eyelid. And then you just heard the end snap off again. I'm putting his pupil in, the side of his iris right in the corner, down to where his tear duct is. Just increasing that shadow right inside by his tear duct. And that comes down, curves around, and then we need to just increase the shadow in the bag underneath his eye, and going around up off into that corner again. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little lines for the laughter lines coming off the side of his eyes, the crow's feet as they're called as well. And then this little V shadow on the front of his forehead. Now on his actual forehead we've got some little creases in his forehead. I'm just lightly twisting and using the side of the pencil just to indicate them. Because they're very slight, the highlights are just removing them from view a little bit. So again, just bringing the points of his hair down. And the hair at the edge, just some wispy little bits just flicking off that tiny little bit. Just bring his nostril out a little bit. Now, same on his ear. We can just increase the shadows at the top. Then underneath, a bit down the neck, top of his hair. Again, back under his right eye. I'm just going to increase that shadow line right around there, caused by his eye socket. Under his nose. Now this is just general little details, but that's really given us now a good amount of tone and deeper shadows in Ant's face. So I'm just going to come back in with my putty rubber. I'm just going to dab some of these highlights back in. Again, in between the crow's feet. This part coming up on his forehead. And then at the top of his nose. And then a little reflected highlight in the corner of his eye. Right underneath. And this is the fun, you just keep looking. Oh, it's looking really good. So now, just where the edge of his beard meets his cheek, I'm just dappling some little bits. Now we're going to come back in with a 2B pencil, just very gently. Little bit of cross hatching. Again, just the curve over the top of that eye. So a bit more dark here underneath this hair. There's a kind of little mole there, tiny little one in his cheek there. But now we've got the shadow in his ear. And then coming down his neck, shadow caused by his chin. So that's looking pretty good. Now we've got the final little bits, and we should be able to do these really quickly because we've got all of the tones in on Ant's arm underneath, and so now we are literally going to be drawing his tattoos on. So you will be tattooing Ant Middleton's arms. Just crisp that line up underneath. And so now we've got, we'll start with the spider's web. I'm using the 2B pencil. I'm just a bit darker where we're not through the highlights. So here we've got this curved line that can be fairly dark, and we've got this edge, and then we've got this one that goes off up to the edge, and we've got 1, 2, 3 lines of the spider's web. We've got that curve there. Curve over the top, that one in the highlight. I did 2 lines there, so I am literally going to rub out that second line. So now we got this line coming around, that comes down, it goes a little bit lighter. It's kind of a bit faded through in some parts. Tattoos do fade. I know some people who've had very colourful tattoos, they have to keep going back and having the colours topped up. And your skin goes through an incredible amount of wear and tear in life. Oh dear, done it again. But here I can see I just need a little bit of lighter cross hatching just up on that highlight. But already you can see we've got that spider's web in on his arm. And now I'm going to go back up here where we had the swallow. We got the wing, and it's just a simple case of going over your little lines that you've put under. So there's the wing, some squiggles at the back, the body going up underneath his arm, and that's actually quite light. But you can do it a little bit darker and then just dab it with your putty rubber afterwards. Little bit of soft tone inside just to colour that in. Now we've got this kind of flower and leaf little motif. So little circle in the middle, and I'm using a kind of flat part, not a sharp part, because tattoos are just a little bit blurred. They're the 4 leaves, and then there's a little bit of kind of stem coming off, and that goes off up underneath his arm, a little bit showing out under the sleeve. Then we've got the curve that comes down to this leaf. Then nice curve there. Then we've got this little triangle that we said kind of looks like possibly a bunch of grapes. That's just like a nice wiggly shape there. Fill some tone in, put a couple of little squiggle lines next to it, increase the shading coming down. Now here we have got that kind of skull with a cigarette in his mouth, and then you've got bits in between his teeth at the bottom, his chin, some tone inside, and that comes off, curves round, goes up. A little bit of tone there for the triangle, which is probably his nose, possible eye socket, and that curves up and goes around there. Now we've got the lady, just following the curve of a hair round, down, that D shape for her eye, same for the right eye, then the hair comes off. Got that curve going up, little shape for her lips, side of her face. Then we've got the arm coming down, curves up, and you've got the hand going off. Just put some squiggles in because she's got a sleeve. She herself has a sleeve tattoo. Then you've got hair at the back, curves out, down, round, comes up. Again, just some squiggles for that flower in her hair. Here we've just got an oval, some shapes that come down. Then we've got this funny little shape that we had down here. Can't quite make it out, but we put the shapes down. Just put a bit of tone in. 2 lines coming over what looks like a leaf. Little bit of tone in. A couple of little marks underneath the lady's arm. Then you've got her back. There's the top part of her back and her breast and the leg. She's got like a kind of black leotard on. Fill that in a bit. The leg comes up, that's a knee, and that's the line of a thigh down. And we've got that fuzzy line that we left. I'm just putting some little dots in to give us the definition of arm, the edge of Ant's arm. And her other leg goes off up there. Then you've got her right arm. That curves. Again, just a little bit of shading in for the sleeve on her right arm. And it looks like it might be a glass, so a little triangle at the bottom, like a martini glass or a champagne glass, and an umbrella at the top. And you've got the rest of her hair coming down the back. Then we've got those 2 lines, and then we're on to where the flowers are. So now just following the shapes around, but just putting little wiggles on for the shapes of the petals, and then you just a little bit of shading inside. Then we've got this little S shape here that curves up and over, little curve. Again, I'm just filling these shapes in that we already put those construction lines down when we were very careful earlier, and this is a lot quicker and we're actually filling it in. Just some tonal shapes, shading. Here we've got two leaves. Got the vine veins inside the leaves, and then here we've got, kind of looks like a pair of lips, but it's more like a flower. There's the edge of the leaves going around, and then we've got a leaf coming out the back, and again just some tone inside. Just increase the shadow that little bit on his watch. And there you can see that arm is just, the detail of the tattoos has just appeared really well. Now the same on his right arm. We've got this kind of triangle shape that came off. There's another one that comes to the side, and then underneath in that shadow there's just a couple of little lines. Then we've got that one line, then a V, then another V, then we've got this shape that we put in down here with a bit of shading inside, 2 lines going to the edge. Then we've got this little love heart, some lines coming off, a little bit underneath it, a real dark shadow right underneath at the bottom. I'm increasing the shadow now caused by his left arm over his right. Now you can see that's just given us some great definition. So now we have this big rose flower. And I'm just increasing the strength of some of the outer lines. And then we need to just fill in some tone. And there's tone from, and you don't go right to the edge of the line, of the outer line. So here you go from the outer of that line up, but you don't quite go to the edge. So it's darker from that line, then a bit of a softer tone around the edge again. And that comes down there. Again, I'm going quite quickly just to fill this in so that we're getting and finished. Not long, we've nearly finished. And this has been absolutely fantastic. I hope you've enjoyed this. There's the veins on that leaf. That chevron. There's it. There was a heart there. And so we've got the shading underneath. And this flower at the back. Again, you're just filling in the little bits of the tattoos and the leaves and the shapes. Again, we've got this rose flower petals coming out underneath the sleeve of Ant's right arm. Increase the shadow there, same going down there. Now we're just doing the shapes on this flower right on the end of his arm. Again, just following the lines that we put down. Now I know that I've not kind of zoomed in, but if you're watching this on a HD screen or even a 4K monitor, it will upscale. I record in HD at the moment. You'll get to see this, but I want you to just get used to drawing the shapes. And rather than zooming in, it's about putting those foundation lines and then trusting your eyes and training your eyes to see what you need to see for each area of the drawing. Because you should be looking at the reference in your paper and you're seeing where roughly my pencil is, and that will help you with your actual drawing. So anyway, I hope this is being helpful. I'm having a blast. Fill in that leaf. I'm now doing this leaf to some veins. Just squiggling and filling in. Now this bit down the bottom, this is really nice and rich and dark. So I'm just filling in the shapes. Using this flatter, softer side again. We've got this scroll that comes down. That's quite a thick line. And then you've got this leaf behind it, and then that thicker tone, those slightly darker lines. Darken these leaves down, and then there's a tiny, I say just soft, kind of little circles going around there. And then Ant's got some like moles or freckles on his arms. Could even just be little marks that were put in by the tattooist. Just little dots around. And then just soften the edge of that hand. Darken that right into the corner. Just filling in the bits next to the frog's little legs. And that's looking pretty good. Now, we've just done all of the tattoo. Now, when we did the shading underneath, so we did the arm outline, then we put the shape lines down for the tattoos. We then did the tonal aspects of the actual skin and removed the highlights, and now we've put all of the tattoos back in, but a lot more detail and a lot more shading. But we need where the highlights are to do the same thing. So I'm literally going back over and where the highlights are on his muscles, so like that swallow, you're just dabbing a little bit off. And the spider's web, that highlighted part there. And then the lady's arm. And then coming down, in fact a leg, just need a little bit of soft tone. She's got tattoos on her leg, so I just squiggled that in nice and quickly. And then that flower above. And then here, kind of up this ligament, there's a really nice highlight coming up. A little one underneath. And again, the same on his hand, just picking up the highlight on the watch again. And then here we've got this lovely highlight going all the way up. So just softening all of those tattoos on the top of that muscle. And then again, that corner part there. And then we've got through the centre of this rose onto his arm. And then coming down at the bottom, like we've got that very strong highlight, there's a softer one. I'm just dappling where the hair's on his arm. Go over the shirt, just gives you that kind of little fuzzy edge. And then the tops of his fingers, just putting those highlights back in. Then last final look at the highlights. So we've got a much stronger one on the corner of that cheek there. Now make sure to pick up the right pencil, 2B pencil. And this will allow me to just put in some more crease lines. And then we've got that tonal part on that corner, that kind of triangle. And that, a little bit on his lip. That pretty much is Middleton. I hope you've enjoyed that. I've had an absolute blast. It's been quite an interesting image to do. I have got quite a lot of dirt on the inside of my hand, so there is a lot down here still. So what I'm going to do is I'm cleaning up around the edge of ant, and that's where even the paper, like I say, there's dirt underneath the paper. When I was resting my hand, it's just pulled it off over to the edge. So I'm literally just cleaning off the edge of that paper because I've pulled a load, and I can even see it on the side. This is now so dirty to off the edge of the paper. And these are just the kind of nice little final details that you need. And so what we finally need is the signature. So we've got Ant Middleton by Billy 2020. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a very, very technical lesson, but by using simple shapes, as I always say, you can break a drawing down. Anyway, please do like and subscribe for future videos, and we've got lots more to come. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Ta-da.